The mysterious fog. What is it? Is it alien in nature or something more sinister? Let's get into it. Hello everyone, I'm Sally Knopp. This is Miracles of Consciousness Radio, and we are looking into that mysterious fog. And there's a lot of speculation out there on what it is. And what we are interested in here is truth. And at the end of this video, I will have remote viewed it and I will give you my interpretations as I see it. At the end of the day, you're going to have to make your own determination. And like my father always told me, your judgment is only as good as your information. So, before we begin, we sort of need to lay a foundation. First of all, what are some of the things that people are encountering when they get into this fog? Then two, is it even possible that a nefarious rogue element of our own government could be involved? And then three, what is it really? Is it alien in nature or something more sinister? We're going to get into each one of these, so here we go. Well, the best place to start is right here in the very beginning. What are people seeing and what is the news reporting? Let's go through a few clips just to sort of ascertain where most of us are at with the fog. Here we go.
Low visibility in spots due to some dense morning fog.
Tonight we've got fog along the river and into western Iowa, zero visibility.
Which is being impacted not only by the fog that still seems to be fairly dense at this hour.
Outside Heathrow Airport, the air traffic control tower is barely visible. Emerging from the fog, this plane is one of the flights that made it.
All right, so as you can see, this fog goes a little bit beyond just fog. I mean, around the world, it's very dense. Well, that says something right there. Let's look at a few others. All right, one of the things that people are talking about in this fog are the large particles. And I'm sure you've seen this on TikTok and YouTube and other platforms where people are videoing a strange particle in the fog. And not only that, they're talking about weird tastes and chemical smells that are all associated with this. But we're not going to get fearful because I have a feeling that isn't the intention behind this, is to create fear. But here at this channel, we are not fearful. So hold on, let me get this rolling for you. Let's take a look.
By that.
This is in Toronto, Canada. St. Augustine, Florida.
And it almost looks like snow if you think about it. So we have to really examine what is the source of this? Why is it all of a sudden showing up at the same time the drones are? And the other question is, why does it seem that there's more airplane incidents? YouTube, I have to be careful with the YouTube algorithms. It seems to me that I had that written down. There was several accidents with airplanes, 4, ever since the drone thing became a thing. Is there a disruption? Some speculate that the drones are actually sniffing for a type of radiation that would be emitted by some maybe hidden. Hopefully that doesn't get me banned. Got to be careful with these words here on YouTube. So we're left with, we've got to extrapolate what's going on. Once we can understand what is happening, then we can better address how we are going to respond to it and what our role individually can be. And we're going to get there because I'm not going to leave y'all hanging out there. This is about empowering us and us creating a world we want as a community. One that is filled with community, with lifting each other up, providing healing, and living in a healthy, prosperous world. This is the direction we're all headed. However, the nefarious hoodoo doers are trying really hard to hang on. And if they have to play some nefarious cards to maintain their power, they're going to do that. And how else do they do that except if they can't divide you by race, if they cannot divide you by male, female, if they can't divide you by religion, what else have they got? They got to bring in the alien card, or they have to bring in another fear tactic. And honestly, if we are all sort of tired of the fear mongering, we cannot play into their game. So we have to be able to say, you know what? We know this is a you know what, operation. I gotta say it that way. They ding me on my YouTube channel. That's why it takes me so long to make another video, because I accidentally say something I shouldn't say, and then I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't put that up. That's going to get me in trouble. All right, so let's take a look at a few more things. Hold on. All right, now this fog is showing up around the world. So it's not just here in the U.S. It's all over the place. Here's an example. Let this guy talk.
Everybody else noticed it's been foggy for days now, and the internet never fails to let me know what's happening. The first thing I saw said this is all down to geoengineering. What's that? I have no idea. Another thing I saw said it's down to chemtrails. If you don't know what chemtrails are, if you look at an airplane flying over and you see like water vapor coming out the back, a lot of people believe that's something dodgy by the government, right?
All right, let me pause him there because that's really interesting. We talk about chemtrails. So I even had this conversation with my brother and sister who are older than me, and they know everything and I know nothing. That's the way it is with siblings, right? And I looked up one day to the sky. We were getting ready to go on a trip, just a siblings trip. Our spouses stayed home. And I said, great, they're spraying the sky. So my brother said, what are you talking about? I said, well, they're spraying. And he goes, oh, that doesn't happen. That's just in your imagination. And I said, I want you to look up at the sky and I want you to pay attention to what's coming out of the engine. And so he looked at it for a while and I said, look, is the contrail, is it dissipating? And of course, no, it wasn't. I said, if it were just a standard jet flying through the sky, its contrail is going to be very minimal. It's just going to be water vapor and eventually disperses. When they spray the sky, however, that fog that is coming out of it lingers and spreads out. Now, that's very disconcerting. So I know that probably RFK Jr. is going to be taking care of that. That's going to be part of all this. Again, I'm speculating for entertainment purposes only, right? So here we go. Let me continue with him.
Now, another theory that is quite interesting is the government doesn't want you to see what's in the sky. Now, I'm not too sure what that means, but one thing the fog did stop me seeing was the horse racing was on ITV. Couldn't even see the horses running. Weird. And then another theory, which is the obvious one, UFOs causing all this fog. And there are some people saying it could just be fog. A lot of different opinions. What do you think's causing all this fog?
And he said, he ends that right. You know, what's your opinion? Because it's what we have right now. But what we all can do with start piecing together. You might have a piece. I might have a piece. Somebody else might have a piece. And as we observers around the world begin to look, we're going to notice a pattern. And in that pattern, we're going to know, is there something more nefarious going on? Because it is strange. I have lived on this planet for 64 years. And I can tell you, this has never happened. Not on a worldwide level. I mean, often we've heard of London being really foggy. You don't really have that in the U.S. except occasionally, but rare. And maybe except down by the Golden Gate Bridge. However, when it's around the world like this, and then the Pentagon comes out and they said, oh, well, we don't really know what this is. And, and then they say, well, maybe it's China or maybe it's aliens. I think it gets a little bit more complicated than that. So, in my remote viewing, this is what I get. In my remote viewing of this fog, it feels as though it is tied to the drones. And when a segment of the government comes out and says they don't know, I would argue they do know. Now let me make my case in point, because I'm going to get fuller into my remote view here at the end, but there's something else I want to share with you for those of you who might be saying, Sally has lost her ever-loving mind. And I want to share with you that the three-letter agencies and the governments can actually collude and create things that are not exactly healthy for us. For entertainment purposes only, I must say, do your own due diligence, look up this information yourself. Now, let me pause this for just a second. I want to bring up some very interesting information for you. Hold on. Okay, so back in 1950, the U.S. government did a biological experiment just to see how the American people would deal with such a thing. It was called Operation Sea Spray, and I've got it up here for you to see. But in essence, it states the U.S. Navy biological warfare experiments conducted in 1950 in the San Francisco Bay Area, California. Here's an overview. This is from Ed Grok. The primary aim of Operation Sea Spray was to determine how vulnerable a city like San Francisco could be to a biological weapon attack. And this was part of the Cold War era experiments to assess national vulnerabilities to biological warfare. Now, you can read through all of this, but they did have some health effects to this. The experiment resulted in at least one confirmed death and several infections. So before you get to the point where you're thinking, nobody's going to do that, there it is. It has happened. It has happened. There was also another time where, let me just do it here with you guys. I believe it was 1951, Pensée Esprit. And there was a whistleblower for mass I can't spell. It'll get it. Sorry. Sometimes you get me spelling, sometimes you don't. So here it is, August 15th through the 16th, 1951. This was in a small southern town of France, and they basically, they infected the community. And the symptoms of hundreds of residents experienced severe food poisoning symptoms, including nausea, vomiting, hallucinations, and in some cases, psychotic episodes. 7 people died and around 50 were hospitalized in asylums. Well, that's fun. So anyway, you got to realize that it is possible that there are elements within each of our governments that are wanting to hold on to control. And when they seize the ability to control people the way they were doing up until recently, until, we have kind of the citizen journalists getting out there and beginning to ask questions. Journalism at its outset was meant to hold people accountable, especially people in the government. But what happens when a government or multiple governments, people in them, create, hey, so-and-so over there, my friend, wink, wink, let's get control of our media, and we're going to have them talk about the things that we want them to talk about. And as we're doing that, we're going to start owning the narrative. We are going to control how people think. Because when you think about it, when anything ever happens, what do we all do? Me included. We go to our TV, go to the news source. What is going on? And by the way, it doesn't just happen to us. I have a friend who is a colonel at Stratcom during 9/11. He says he was in his wing commander's office, and he glanced over and he noticed that there had been an event in New York City and smoke coming out of the towers. And he's like, what is going on? So in Strategic Air Command at that time, they turned on all their TVs and they were watching what was happening on the news. This is Strategic Air Command. And I said, whoa, wait a minute, talking to my friend. You mean to tell me that our government literally is like Men in Black and they go to quote the tabloids to figure out what's going on? He laughed and goes, well, that's our first eyes and ears, and then we kind of go from there. Of course, he couldn't tell me any more than that, but for some reason, it didn't exactly make me feel too fuzzy. Of course, that was back in those days. So we're talking, 23, 24 years ago? Pretty close. Yeah, almost 24 years. Holy cow. Hopefully things have improved. Anyway, if you are of the mind that the government is always going to protect you, there are always bad apples in every place that we look. It can be in the medical community. You can have bad apples in the real estate community. You can have bad apples everywhere. I call them nefarious hoodle-doers. And sometimes they can become so coordinated that they can work together because the narrative is slipping away from them. Now, my remote view is this. Do not allow this thing to create fear in you, because fear is what gives them strength. It's why we get into a place like after 9/11, we now have the Homeland Security to make us all safe. But they can also listen in on your phone calls. Or can they? You'll have to determine that yourself. We can't get into that in this of YouTube. So, but the information's out there. You can deep dive, find out what the Homeland Security does. But at that day, we were all willing to give up some of our freedoms for safety. So when we get to the point where we're giving up our God-given freedoms for safety, we've now created an environment where nefarious hoodle-doers can now take charge of our destinies. And had it not been for the citizen journalist, we wouldn't be there just yet. So thank goodness for the citizen journalist. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are conjecturing. It is the Wild West. But at the end of the day, even though it's the Wild West of information, none of it should be censored, because you, the person, can say, is that right or is that not right? When you begin to see a story from a citizen journalist from several sources, maybe coming from 5 or 10 people, and they're all saying the same thing, now you have something. This is why I sort of said on this story before coming out on this channel and even having a discussion about it, because it's so important that we don't jump on to the next thing to fear. What we need to do is understand that we have a lot more control over our reality than what we've been led to believe. Let that sink in. We are powerful beings. And as I see this unfolding in my remote view, this is man-made. It is nefarious hoodoo-doers. I'll just leave it at that. And we are on the verge of breaking through to an entirely new world where the shackles are coming off and we, the people, are beginning to experience freedoms that we have never known before. Technology is coming forward in a positive way. Remember, technology can be good or bad. Think about just being chipped. Would I be chipped? No, never. Some people would. But when Elon Musk talks about Neuralink, it can have its bad connotations to it. But you know what else it can do? With every bad, there's also good. And with all the good, there can be something bad. It all comes down to this. What is the intention of the person behind it? With Neuralink, it can provide people who have spinal injuries walk again. That's freedom for somebody. But we all have to be held accountable. So as we begin to grow up, when we are leaving our infancy of our troglodyte selves, I don't know how else to say it, behind, we are merging into a spiritual world. And it's filled with love, but it starts with you. Not becoming afraid, not succumbing to that. Knowing that you are powerful. You can create protections around yourself. You have the power to decide your future in ways that you never knew you ever had. For now, I will just leave you with this. This is going to pass. It's not going to have nearly the bite that we have worried about, or some of you are very worried about. It's going to pass, and there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it does feel like a whole new world is about ready to explode in the most positive, beautiful way, and you are here experiencing it. This time is a gift. For those of you who are spiritual, you know what I'm talking about. This is a very spiritual time. This is a time between the dark and the light. This is a time of us choosing where we are going to go, and we choose the light. And this is why on my website, I am igniting the superhuman in you. So reach out if you have any questions or just make a comment. Please like, and if you can, leave a comment. Hey, if you guys don't agree with me, that's okay. Let's talk about it. But I'm giving it to you like I got it. That's what I get. It will pass. We will be okay, so long as we don't fall into the trap, the fear mongering that they want to put in. We say, no more. No more. We control what we think and feel, and we will decide what we believe, because each and one of you is a sovereign being. You don't have to believe me. Tune into yourself. That's the whole point of being a superhuman. Talk to you later. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.